All right, today we are diving into a teaching method that completely flipped the script on how we learn languages. It's called Communicative Language Teaching, or CLT for short.
You know the feeling, right? You've spent years memorizing vocabulary lists, you've nailed all the grammar drills, but then you try to actually order a coffee or ask for directions and poof, your mind just goes completely blank. It is so frustrating, and it's that exact problem that sparked a revolution in language education.
So, what's the story here? How did we go from classrooms full of silent, frustrated students to confident speakers? In this explainer, we're going to unpack the problem CLT was born to solve, dig into the revolutionary idea behind it, see how it actually works in a classroom, and then look at its massive impact on learning today.
Okay, so to really get why CLT was such a huge deal, we have to travel back in time and see what classrooms used to be like. Because for a very, very long time, the main goal of learning a language, believe it or not, wasn't really to speak it.
Just think about it. The classroom was this place for translating, for diagramming sentences, and for just endless repetition. You were learning about the language, kind of dissecting it like a frog in a science class, but you weren't really learning how to use it in the wild.
So, let's take a quick trip back in time. For about a century, from the 1840s to the 1940s, the grammar translation method was king. The whole point was to read classic literature, not chat with people. Then in the 50s and 60s, audiolingualism came along, using military-style drills to burn speech habits into your brain. But here's the thing. By the late 60s, educators started scratching their heads, asking, wait a minute, if our students can recite a perfect sentence in a drill, why can't they actually talk to anyone? They knew all the rules, but they had no idea how to play the game.
This frustration? Well, it sparked a revolution. People realized that the entire goal of teaching a language needed a serious rethink. The focus had to shift from getting the grammar perfect to actually getting your message across.
And this was the light bulb moment. Researchers figured out that just knowing the rules of grammar, what we call linguistic competence, wasn't nearly enough. To actually communicate, to get things done with words, you needed something else. You needed something called communicative competence.
So, what on earth is communicative competence? Well, it's the absolute game-changing idea at the very heart of CLT. It's not just about building a sentence that's grammatically correct. It's about knowing the right thing to say in the right situation. It's understanding social cues, tone, context. It's the huge difference between knowing all the words in a dictionary and actually knowing how to have a real conversation.
Okay, let me give you an analogy that makes this crystal clear. Think of linguistic competence as knowing every single part of a car engine, the pistons, the spark plugs, the whole deal. But communicative competence, that's knowing how to actually drive the car, how to merge into traffic, obey the signs, and actually get to where you want to go. The old methods taught you all about the engine parts. CLT wanted to put you in the driver's seat.
All right, so that's the big idea. But what does this actually look like in a real classroom? I mean, how do you teach someone to drive a language instead of just learning its parts?
Well, the whole classroom is built around a few core ideas. First and foremost, everything, and I mean everything, is about communication. You use real-world materials, not just made-up textbook examples. The language itself becomes the tool you use to communicate, not just a subject you study. And here's the really big one. Getting your point across, fluency, is way more important than being 100% accurate all the time. Making mistakes is totally okay. In fact, it's expected. It's a natural part of figuring out how to really talk. So you can probably guess that the activities in a CLT classroom are a world away from those old drills. Instead of translating some dry text, students might be working with a real restaurant menu, role-playing how to order a meal. Instead of grammar exercises, they might play a game that forces them to ask questions and describe things to their teammates to win. Or maybe they work in groups to piece together a story from a bunch of scrambled sentences, arguing and negotiating with each other in the target language to figure it out. The goal is always real, messy, meaningful interaction.
Now, this new way of doing things didn't just change the classroom activities. It completely transformed the roles of everyone in the room. That traditional top-down classroom dynamic, it was basically flipped on its head. You see, the teacher's role completely changes. They're no longer the sage on the stage just lecturing from the front. Instead, they become a facilitator, a guide, an advisor. Sometimes they even jump into the activities right alongside the students. And the student? They're no longer a passive sponge just soaking up information. They're an active communicator, constantly negotiating meaning with their peers and taking real responsibility for their own learning. It's a huge shift.
So CLT has been massively influential ever since it really took off in the 70s and 80s. But, like any approach, it's not perfect. It has its critics and its challenges. So let's take a look at the good,
the bad, and the big picture. So let's break this down. The strengths are pretty clear. It's super motivating for students because they're actually using the language to do things. It's interactive and focuses on real-world skills. But, of course, there are some real challenges. It can be a lot more work for teachers to create these dynamic lessons. And there's a legitimate concern that if you focus too much on just getting the message across, some grammatical mistakes might just stick around forever, a process that experts call fossilization. It's a constant balancing act.
But despite all the debates, there is absolutely no question that CLT has left a massive legacy. Its core ideas, focusing on communication, using real materials, making things interactive, are now pretty much standard in modern language teaching all over the world. It fundamentally changed the goal from just knowing about a language to being able to actually do things with it.
And this all brings us back to a really fundamental question that gets to the very heart of this entire philosophy. When you're learning to speak a new language, what do you think matters more? Crafting that perfect, grammatically pristine sentence? Or just being able to connect, to share an idea, and to simply be understood? It's the big question that continues to shape how we all learn and teach languages today.